So, Richard, are you actually telling me that Fife first-time buyers are keeping the local property market afloat? So here we are. Now we're at a stage where everything's completely on its head, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're now saying to each other that Fife first-time buyers in general, are actually keeping the local property markets afloat. How much credence is in that statement? So let's look at it. Let's actually dive down into this. The Fife housing market is relatively buoyant just now, thanks to an unexpected group of people. Hurrah! Get the flags out, celebrate. Fife first-time buyers are here to stay. I mean, many Fife tenants are annoyed with competing for Fife rental properties at high rents. You know that yourself, Richard.
Yeah, there's a lot of competition and a lot of demand.
Therefore, over the last 12 months, many renters have been stretching their finances to get onto the actual housing ladder, despite sky-high mortgage rates. Now, let's put that into perspective. Mortgage rates are still very affordable in comparison to what it was in the credit crunch. However, there's more inventive ways as well, actually, for the lenders to make your monthly cost a lot less than what it is. And, that's a different prospect. And please speak to a mortgage consultant for that reason. But let's use some of the data then to look at this overall. Let's look at the Office of National Statistics, put my teeth back in, Land Registry and the Bank of England together. And of the 5,565 properties bought in the last 12 months in the Fife area, 1,508 were bought by first-time buyers. Let me get my calculator out and do a quick calculation of that. And that is literally 27% of people are now first-time buyers. That's an amazing start.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. So that's Fife as a whole. Then what about that regionally? Obviously, like when you break that down in area.
I knew you were going to say that. And what happens? As if by magic, I prepared something earlier. So let's look at Cooper in isolation. This is KY14, KY15, which is the Cooper area. So 520 were actually bought last year in that area, and 141 were actually first-time buyers. 27%. In the East Nuke area, 301 properties were actually bought last year, and 81 of these were actually first-time buyers, 27%. Okay. Glenrothes area, 569 were actually bought last year, and that's the KY6 and KY7. Now, East Nuke was KY9, KY10. Glenrothes is KY6, KY7. So out of 569, 154 were actually first-time buyers. Oh, 27%. This is going to be right across the board, isn't it? I may as well just put my calculator down, but I love my calculator. Here's a typical accountant for you. So, and the Leavenmouth area, 475 were bought last year, 129 were actually first-time buyers. So divided by that is just over 20%, 27.5%. Sorry. Let's look at St Andrews though. 387 sold in St Andrews area, which is KY16. Remember, KY8 is the Leavenmouth area, KY16 St Andrews. So 387 bought in total last year, in the last 12 months. 104 were first-time buyers. And there's going to be no surprise here when I say, well, look, it's 27. 26.8. That accounts for the difference between leaving.
On average, we're 27%.
We'll just call it Leavenmouth because it's literally Leavenmouth. It's no leaving because Leavenmouth incorporates KY8, which is London Links, which is KY86, Buckhaven, which is KY1 and 2, Methyl Hill, which is KY3, Leavenmouth, which is KY84, and KY85 in its entirety. So, I mean, really, with just under 1 in 3 house purchases made by first-time buyers in the last 12 months. About 1 in 4, 1 in 3. It might surprise you that many, that this has been steadily growing since 2010, when only 1 in 5 house purchases were made by first-time buyers. Makes it really accessible now, isn't it? Yeah. What do you think? What do you think is that? You know, what do you think's caused that, Richard? Is that just availability of mortgages and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, first-time buyers have remained the most resilient group of property buyers, and even during these kind of difficult times and that, usually first-time buyers would be the most affected in times of stress in the property market. Like in the last 2 years, previously when markets could have crashed, like 1998 and 2008. However, this time it's a bit different. Yep. Despite obviously increasing mortgage rates and things, the rental market and its high rents are making buying a more attractive option for many Fife renters.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it does make it more of an attractive option. So it's a combination of interest rates still affordable. I mean, we've done the analysis that there's still a boom market and property prices up to 250,000. There's still more demand than there is supply up to 250,000, 250,000 to 350,000. There's the same supply and demand in the Fife area, and 350,000 and upwards. There's more supply coming on than there is actually demand for these types of properties at that price point. Mm-hmm. Now, incidentally, 350,000 could be a 5-bedroom, 6-bedroom luxury villa in Leven, but 350,000 in St Andrews is basically a 2-bedroom bungalow.
A 2-bedroom.
So it kind of, let's put that into perspective, you know. So there's averages right throughout the area in terms of where it is, but with the boots on the ground, and you know, the very facts are, and these are the facts, is the first-time buyers represent 27% of that buying power now, which is coming up for about 1 in 3, which is 33% almost. So that then tells me, and what you said there, as rents are actually moving up quite substantially in the areas. Have you got any figures on the rents right across Fife and probably in the region?
Yeah, so let's look at the rents and the average increase in rents, and we'll compare it. I mean, like Q1 of 2021 for Fife as a whole. Now, when we say about Fife, that's KY1 through to KY12 and also KY14, 15 and 16. Now, the average rent in Fife area was £739 per calendar month. Now, the Fife rental market has experienced increasing rents.
That's a big number, Richard. 739. Jeez.
Well, that's what it was.
I know.
That's what it was in 2021.
But this is what I don't understand. It's like, who's renting these properties? Because I'm no renting. I mean, I've been in this for 30 years, and these £739 per calendar month is a big number. Do you think that's been skewed quite? Oh, well, let's look at the numbers. You'll know it's been skewed by things like the East Nuke, about St Andrews, and overall, really, it's a lot less in other areas, maybe the Leedmouth area or possibly the Glenrothes area than that figure right now. So go and tell me what the rental market is now and see if you can break it down for me as well.
Yeah. So as I was saying, that's what, when we talk about stats like this and we talk about Fife as a whole, you need to be aware that we're taking in consideration, like I say, KY1 right through to KY12, 14, 15 and 16. And that includes
St Andrews. Why is KY13 no in there? Because it's Kinross.
Yes.
It's a bizarre thing, eh?
Yeah, when we talk about Fife, though, it obviously includes St Andrews and East Nuke and things, and when they bring that together. So let's look, the Fife area, the rental market has experienced increasing rents in the last 2 years, and that's what I'm going to talk about Q1 in 2021 to Q1, which is the start of this year in 2023. Now, for Fife as a whole, the rents have increased from £739 to £799 a month to the first quarter of this year. Now, that's an increase of 8.1% in 2 years. All right.
I tell you what, that's no bad. Inflation is running in the last 2 years about 15%.
Yeah.
Or thereabouts over the last 2 years, inflation. So we're saying, wait a minute, this flies in the face of the Scottish Government's figures, doesn't it? Wait a minute, this is lies, damn lies, and statistics for the Scottish Government. This is because Fife, in essence, over the last 2 years, has only gone up 8.1%
in 2 years
in terms of the market rent.
Yeah. So let's break it down then into the different areas of Fife. So just to be clear, we're comparing Q1 of 2021 to Q1 of 2023, which is this year, obviously. So that's the 2 year period and the difference between them. Now we'll start Levenmouth area, which is the KY8. Now that's everything that's in KY8, like you see, Jim, London Links, Methyl Hill, Methyl and things as well. The rent in Q1 of 2021 was £480. That was the average rent. Now, the first quarter of this year, it's up to 596. Now, that's an increase in rent of 24.2%. All right. So that's the KY leave a mouth area.
You think that was maybe just a long time coming, that rent increase? Because I mean, when you've looked at 2 years ago, 480 quid for the average rent, it's like that was literally mine about 15 years ago. So in the last 15 years, the average rent 2 years ago hasn't really moved up at all.
Really changed.
And it's only in this last 2 years we've had a boom in the rental values. But admittedly, since the credit crunch, since about 2003, in the last 20 years, salaries have doubled.
Yeah.
So salaries have doubled, but rents have gone up significantly less. And yet we're still got a government that says to us that rents are out of control. There's something wrong there.
If you break it down, I don't think that they're out of control. Rents have course, they've increased in area and across the areas, and certain areas more than others. But as you say, Jim, if we look at the KY leave mouth area, 2 years ago we were £480. Now we're sitting at £596 on average.
Okay.
Areas. KY6, KY7. Quarter on to 2021, the average rent was £556. It's went up to 667, so it's increased 19.9%, which is just around about 20%. The Cooper area was £648, and it's increased in the first quarter of this year to £811, which is 25.1%. The East Neuk area was £697. Now that has increased to £798 in the first quarter of this year, which is 14.5%, which is a bit lower than what I thought. I mean, and in comparison to other areas. Now, St Andrews has started at £1,227. That was in the first quarter of 2021. And in comparison to 2 years ago, in the quarter of this year, it's increased to £1,443. Now, that's an increase of 17.6%.
Wow, that's a huge number. I mean, percentage-wise, you can say that's huge numbers, but when you actually put in pounds, shillings, and pence, the St Andrews is significantly more, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's you're a few £100 more, which is quite a good, a considerable jump.
This is actually quite an interesting one. So, according to the Bank of England, if I look at where we are now to where we were before, they're saying, and I'll be honest about this, the inflationary aspect. They say that 648, you said for Cooper, should really only be 748.
Yeah.
So it should only be 748 according to the Bank of England. Now, the reason that I know that is because I'm on their calculator right now for inflation.
Yeah.
So 748 minus 648 equals £100 divided by 648. So effectively, the Bank of England inflation's gone up 15.4%, which is what we more or less said.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, inflation right now from 2021 to now has gone up by 15.4%. So, any other area? You said East Neuk, eh?
Yeah, East Neuk, it was 697.
East Neuk is really under the inflation.
Yes, it is.
And Glenrothes is a wee bit above it. St Andrews is a wee bit above it. Leamouth's way above it, and so is Cooper.
Yes.
So
these are two popular areas.
What's driving these figures then?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple reasons why rents are rising, and one reason includes mortgage rates, as we discussed there, and these increase in mortgage rates and things that landlords or investors are experiencing are passed on to the tenant in increased rents. And obviously, they're having to put their rents up due to their increased costs for the mortgage side of things. I mean, some Fife landlords and things with high percentage mortgages are selling their buy-to-let properties and portfolios because Section 24 taxation rules and changes, and leaving the market entirely. And we've seen that over the last year. And
the yield just doesn't make it practical anymore for anybody. And you've got to understand if an investor, let's call it an investor, and let's not call it a landlord, because it's quite an emotive word for most people. It's like saying to somebody about independence and then boom, it's like I'm vegan, boom. It's like as soon as you mention independence, vegan, or private landlords, they're almost like the same emotive response from different groups of people. So let's call it investors. So if an investor was coming along and looking at their money in the bank, which is effectively a property, and thinking, can I get a decent return on that, and can I actually give them a good return? The property prices are actually getting to a point where the return that's available now, because it's been restricted by the Scottish government and putting the rent cap in place, is no longer an attractive return to keep somebody in that market. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I would say that is a fair statement, and I've seen quite a lot of it recently, and it does happen. And there's another reason is that there's fewer landlords, there's fewer investors who are buying rental properties to let out and building portfolios and things. There's not as much out there that are buying, and I think there's only around about 1 in 8 house purchases made by investors.
I had a story to tell you right now. I got a call from a landlord yesterday, actually, and he was about to rent his house, one of his flats, and he said, look, Jim, he says, I've had a think about it. I'm just going to sell it. He says, I just looked at it, and he says, I put carpets down, I painted and everything like that. And he says, he doesn't want to take the risk of having the tenant move in again and having to do it all over again. He says he's had enough. He's at the end of his tether. He's paying 41% on all his income. So he's paying 41% on all his income. And it's primarily because Section 24, and he's got the mortgages all in his name, even though he's a window cleaner, he has to pay 41% tax on everything he does as cleaning windows. So if he goes out and cleans a window and he charges £1 for cleaning that window, he literally gets left with 59 pence of that. That's no right, is it?
No.
And it's only because he has all the mortgages in his name primarily in the beginning, and Section 24 has nailed him for it. It puts him at a higher rate straight away. And a lot of people don't understand what Section 24 is actually doing to the market. 1 in 4 landlords are affected like this, where they could be just a basic rate payer overall, but because they've got a portfolio of properties and interest is only deducted as a tax credit now rather than actually against the income,
pushing them into that different tax
then it's pushing them into a higher rate bracket. And every pound they earn from being a window cleaner, from being a home cleaner, from being a teacher or doctor or accountant or estate agent or letting agent, any pound that they earn will be taxed at the highest rate, which is, 41% at this point in time. So that's why it's making it prohibitive for these people, and that's why he's decided, I've just had enough, I'm going to sell them off. And he's exiting, he's getting rid of 30 of them, and now he's getting rid of this one, and he's getting rid of another 2. So no one's replacing them, by the way. So where's that going to leave us? Maybe we should phone Patrick Harvey.
Yeah, but we're losing them for the sector. They're losing that.
Hello, Patrick? See, no answer, eh? Just like the Green Party.
Losing them for the market, thus leaving tenants without housing in the private sector. And as I said, obviously there's few investors and things picking up properties for buy-to-let investment. And I think there's only around about 1 in 8 house purchases that are being made by landlord investors. And meanwhile, demand for Fife rentals and things is still really high. We are inundated with people, and demand just continues to outpace supply. So it means that people that are looking to rent in Fife are forced to maybe accept higher rental prices or offer more than what they're actually on the asking price for, just try and secure tenancies because there's so few properties and they're pitched against each other.
Do you know the people I feel most for is the vulnerable? Yeah. And what I mean by the vulnerable is people on universal credit.
They don't have the ability to go that higher.
They don't have the ability to go that high because the universal credit rates have been frozen for the last 3 years. They've changed the calculation from being the average to only a 30% tile. In other words, if the average rent in the private market was £100, the government was saying, well, we'll pay £50. But now we've changed our mind. We're only paying £30 towards that. And by the way, we're going to freeze that for the next 3 years. So as rental prices go up for all the private market, the social market, which is the universal credit market and local housing allowance market, cannot keep up with that. So they have nowhere to go. They don't have a choice anymore. Unless they put money in their own pocket, but they could barely feed themselves and heat themselves at this point in time. So how are they able to do that? And
they're not.
They're not. I think you've just hit the nail on the head. That's really in a nutshell. I could have given a long-winded comment there, but really, in reality, no.
That's the short answer.
You're absolutely right, Richard. I think it really is. Forget it, Jim. Just come straight to the point, like what you said. They're not going to be able to afford it. So the most vulnerable in the society are actually suffering as a result of the green policies that are being put in place about rent caps and moratoriums and evictions.
And I've seen a lot of tenants over the last year or 2 years even become frustrated because they're priced right out that end of the market. And even properties that were maybe at the slightly lower end of the market that was affordable for people in that situation were being picked up by people who were had really good incomes and things because there was such a shortage in property. And also tenants and things looking in Fife were offering to pay up to like 6 months up front. No qualms at all. You're 6 months up front.
And then as well, you've
strengthen their negotiating position, but then it would leave the other people just totally without a choice but to move on and try and looking for something else.
But then you've got the most vulnerable in the society actually saying, well, we can't afford it, so we've not got anywhere to go. And then that's where the landlord that, now this is few and far between, by the way, but the landlord that maybe doesn't spend as much on the property, maybe doesn't reinvest a lot in the property, but is still legally compliant, but it's not as nice inside. It's not as nice inside in terms of the standards. They've maybe still got the single glazing rather than double glazing in. They've maybe still got the old heating system in. See where that's going. The old heating system instead of the newer condenser boilers. And it's not their fault. It's the fact that they don't have enough money to reinvest in the property now because there's not the right return on the property. So therefore, then the tenant suffers again by the fact that they can't afford to heat the property. Yeah. Because they've got single glazing now, they've got an inefficient heating system. And that's really not the landlord's fault because that's driven by the fact that the landlord can only invest in what they can actually make on the property in order to get an adequate return and reinvest it back into the property. You have to make a profit out there. You have to. For anybody out there that says, oh, these people that make a profit from property, you're demons and it's all the rest of it and you're vilified. And it's like, you don't understand. Every business has to make a profit. And this is a business. We're renting a property at a fair value for a fair return, for a fair service and a fair product. That's what it is. And these are the market rents. This is how it's driven. And if you don't like that, I will love the day it arrives where I am no longer needed to rent property to anyone because it means I can sell everything off and the government is looking after all the people that I'm looking after right now on social rents, on housing benefit, on universal credit, and people that genuinely can't afford to buy a house because they don't have the credit rating to get the funding from the bank to get a house, so they have to rent whether they like it or not. So I would love the day when that comes, where the government says you're no longer required because we've got all the property available for these people now, and hallelujah. That's what I'm looking forward to.
That's not going to happen.
Unfortunately,
not in your lifetime or mine, maybe.
Well, it could happen with the right people. I've
always
always said
people that potentially could, but
the right people, the right motivation, the right way of thinking. They keep saying we can't afford to build because it's too costly, whereas I say you can't afford not to build because guess what? It's too costly.
Yeah.
Because it'll cost you more in the medium to long term by not building affordable and social housing than it will actually in the short term by actually not building at all.
Yeah.
You're not saving any money, you're losing money. They don't get it. It's the opportunity cost.
Yeah,
the cost
definitely. We've covered
building,
that before, Jim. Yeah.
The cost of not building is far greater than the cost of building. Because if you're building, then you're renting to people who are on benefits who then get the universal credit from the government, and then the money goes back to the councils to keep the stock in check. Whereas right now it goes to the private landlords. So it's money just given away. Effectively, they could have got back. It doesn't make sense at all. And then if you're not building, then that's what's happening. The money's just going to somewhere else. Whereas you could keep it in house, you can look after your own stock. But again, it comes down to the people looking after the stock as well. Anyway, let's digress.
Yeah,
tenants are offering to pay 6 and 12 months, as you said, to strengthen their position. The situation where many Fife renters move forward with plans to buy a home for themselves, despite the increasing cost of home ownership. But what about the deposit then?
But then I was going to say, but then they need a deposit. So what about
bank of mum and dad?
I was just going to say, Jim.
Bank of mum and dad.
And that's where a lot of people are having to go.
And some people out there that says I can't afford the house. It's no fair that Bank of Mum and Dad can pay for your house. Well, unfortunately, Bank of Mum and Dad made an effort and actually put money aside to be able to pay for their house because they foresee it coming. So they made the sacrifices in order to allow that to happen. Bank of Mum and Dad decided to sell their bigger house and move into a smaller house so they could release money in order to pay for the deposit for their children. The next generation is going to be more wealthy than ever because of Bank of Mum and Dad right now. And the accumulation of wealth that they've got is going to be the biggest transfer of wealth ever in a generation. And that's just going to excite the market even more, isn't it?
Well, I was just going to say that'll be a busy time.
So Bank of Mum and Dad, no doubt about helping first-time buyers with the deposits. The average national deposit, the national average deposit paid by first-time buyers was just over 63,000 in January 2023, which is about 23% of the purchase price. Now, I don't know about you, but I reckon we didn't get 63,000.
That's what I've been doing in my house.
When you first bought
it. I know, it wasn't that far off.
And it's so, but Bank of Mum and Dad, admittedly, so I put 40,000 towards Tony's purchase, and Tony got a 90 grand mortgage, 125. So she probably put 30 in, so 40 and 30, 70. Yeah, around about that. That's about still that same figure. Lowest rate for the 2-year fixed rate first-time buyer mortgage is with 23% deposit. This is actually quite interesting because this 23% deposit, let's look at it. What is the lowest mortgage rate you can get then with that 23% deposit down? Well, there's a 2-year fixed rate first-time buyer mortgage at 4.13%, up from 2.86% a year ago.
Okay.
4.13 is still pretty good.
Yeah, I thought we maybe been a wee bit higher than that at the moment, but
they've started to come down, even though they're factoring a base rate increase on the 11th of May. I think it's the 11th, don't quote me on it. So 11th of May, we're reckoning base rates will probably go up to 4.5%. But people like Nationwide, Lloyds, I think, HSBC, they're bringing the rates down by probably about 0.15%. It's no an earth shatterer. However, base rates are predicted to go up, and they're still bringing them down.
Yeah.
So that's actually really good.
So what ways could, like, if first-time buyers and things, Jim, what ways could they maybe reduce their monthly payments to their mortgage?
So that's a good question. How can first-time buyers reduce their monthly payments? Well, they can actually do it by increasing the length of their mortgage. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
Now, I did this in the very early days when I first started out, when I was really struggling for cash every single month. When I was struggling for cash every single month as a student, as you do, and we were pushing out because Elaine's was the only wage coming in. I was actually looking back at that wage bill now, and it was like £13,000 at Diageo. So she had 13 grand coming in, and I had basically nothing because I had to pay for all my student stuff myself. That's how the government system worked at that time. So we decided to increase the mortgage length and the term, because if you're on a capital repayment, the interest won't reduce every single month. Well, when you pay the capital off, but the capital is a big amount because the capital has to be paid down by the end of the term. So if you move the term out longer, the capital can be paid over a longer term, therefore reduce the monthly payment. And a classic example of that is increasing your mortgage term from 25 to 30 years. You will save £45 per month in mortgage payments for every 100,000 borrowed.
That's okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So if somebody's got a £300,000 house, they're effectively going to be saving £135 a month just by putting it from 25 to 30 years. Now, you're going to be saving that in your monthly payment, remember, but you've got to see the overall picture if you want, and it's a choice, really. You'll pay more in the long run by increasing the term because you'll take longer to pay off the capital element. Therefore, the interest charged on it will be a lot more. Therefore, you're going to go 5 years extra of additional interest as well on top of that. So increasing the term is going to do that. Now, for me personally, when we were in our position, cash was the most important thing, because I was studying to be an accountant. I didn't realize I was studying to be an accountant at that time. I just thought, I'm going to do business and computer studies, see how we get on. And then all of a sudden, I excelled in Well, I excelled in everything. I excelled in computer studies, I excelled in business studies, and I excelled in accountancy. So I applied for 3 HNDs, and I got accepted to all of them. And then I went, I'm going to specialise in accountancy, because that seemed to be the thing that really floated my boat quite a lot. So
but then that facilitated you to do that, and I think it's important to remember that if you're in that maybe that kind of position in the early stages, you could have your mortgage like that to alleviate some cash and help you live, and then change that when you remortgage.
Hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what I did. It was to alleviate the cash flow position at that point in time, because I knew later on I was going to end up getting a job as an accountant, who would be significantly more money. Well, as what I thought was significantly more money, but apparently trainee accountants don't get paid that much because they're treated like interns. In other words, we'll give you a basic amount and we'll train you as your luxury. So that was at that time. You know, I remember going into Carter's and Hamish said to me, "What are you expecting?" I went, "Oh, probably about 8.5," because I was getting paid at 8 at Standard Life. And he went, "Oh," he says, "Oh, we usually pay about 6,000. It's like, I'll not be working here then.
Yeah.
But that's literally what it was at the time. So that shows a big difference. And then I got industry. Industry was fantastic because it was manufacturing. Manufacturing was a lot more advantageous, and it gave you a lot more. It opened a lot more doors, and it really began to float my boat. And thank God. Take my hat off to Hamish if he's still going. Thank God you refused me and never gave me the job. Well, hey, or I might be an accountant still, and I might not be doing what I love the most.
Yeah, but I mean, so when we talk about first-time buyers and obviously extending the mortgage term and things, I think it's around about 11 out of 20 first-time buyers are taking out mortgages now for 30 years or more. Now that's the highest level since around about, I think, records began in 2005. But what about people that have got a lower deposit?
Okay. So I was reading something the other day about Money Facts on their website, on Money Facts website. The number of available 95% mortgage deals has risen from the early 160s in early March to nearly 210 last week. So there's more first-time buyer mortgages available. You have to remember, Richard, it's the highest level since September 2022, showing that banks are not worried about the property price crash. Moreover, the Coventry and Nationwide building sites have reduced their mortgage rates, as I said. You know, on a low deposit, on a low deposit, 90 to 95% mortgages over the past few weeks. You know, so you only need 10 or 5% deposit, and they've actually reduced their rates. Yeah. Their average 2-year fixed rate 95% mortgage is 5.64%. And the best rate is 4.9%.
That's quite good for having the 95%. And
base rates is predicted to go up to 4.5.
Yeah.
Here's the margin in this. You have to realise, though, the mortgage market has been booming for the last 3 years. There's a huge amount of what we call fat in the system. In other words, there's a lot of people making money. There's a lot of people employed in this system, working and doing all these numbers. In order to sustain that, they have to keep selling mortgages and keep packaging mortgages. I don't really want to say the damn packaging mortgages because it's like toxic debt. I tell you what, it might be actually. Because they're still doing that. Anyway, but that's another story. Yeah. So they're having to keep selling products. So therefore, we having to be more inventive in order and be more competitive against each other in order to stay in business, in order to stay with their workforce and stay self-sustained. If you start having mass layoffs, you know what happens next. It's like when you need them all back next year because the tide's turned or whatever it's done. It's like you've got to get all these people back again. You've got to retrain them all because they've all gone and done something else. Look what happened to the pandemic, to the tourism industry. Everybody's disappeared and got jobs, and like tourism industry and restaurant industry have gone, I've got nobody employed now. They're all doing something else, and nobody wants to come back.
Yeah, like British Airways at Heathrow. God, that was chaos.
Yeah. So that's the short-term thinking, and a lot of banks do not want to do that, and a lot of mortgage companies don't want to do that either. This is actually quite interesting as well, though. Skipton Building Society has even launched a structured product for certain first-time buyers that will not need a 5% deposit if the buyer can prove their rental history it's about time two of you ask me.
Yeah, I think
Val was always saying, you know, if people are paying their rent every single month, surely that's a great advocate for their credit rating, and that should be reflected in their credit report. But it's not. It's not. They don't. So Skipton's actually said that. And we've had this before, because I remember they used to write to us way before, and they used to write to us and say, are their rental payments up to date? Have they always paid on time? Have they ever had a problem? No. Great stuff. We'll give them a mortgage.
Yeah.
So I've seen this before.
That's the way it should be.
It's now come back, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So that's quite an interesting one. I think as well what's helped is the government mortgage guarantee scheme. I mean, that was extended in 2020 to 2023, which partially ensures the bank build size on a default, so on their 95% mortgages. And it has been recognised for keeping some of these low deposits available to first-time buyers.
I think that's key for first-time buyers that are maybe not in such a position where they've got quite a lot of available cash to put down on a deposit, that these low deposits and these kind of products are available to them, and to keep this kind of game in place in order for people to get onto the ladder. And that is really important, I think, for me anyway.
I think overall I'm quite optimistic about with the way things are going. I don't think, just to finalise and conclude on this and just wrap up here, I don't think, based on this information that we've just discussed, that there's anything severe or indicators that suggest that there's going to be any mass change in maybe rental values, and also in mortgage availability, and also in property availability as well. Especially the fact that now the investors have exited the bottom end of the market, usually by typical buy-to-lets. Now the first-time buyers have come along and started to buy these properties and actually propped it up. So it's now gone from where sometimes it's a mix of both. I would argue that the stats are there. 1 in 8 is landlords, and basically almost 1 in 3, or near enough, is first-time buyers. So now it's changed. The tables have turned. It's now the equilibrium came along where investors supported it in the beginning and first-time buyers didn't, and then now it's got to the equilibrium where the balancing point comes, and then it comes even Stevens, and then now it's switched to 1 to 8 landlords and 1 to 3 to first-time buyers. So I do think this has probably got a long time to stay. Yeah. This is where I go back to saying we're running this right now on some of our articles. We're running some of the repurposed content. And I was saying the fastest growing price market in terms of property prices is probably going to be the flats market. Because they're affordable to the first-time buyers, which is great for my valuations. You know, in terms of my rental stock, it's like, well, hey, first-time buyers, keep buying. You know, all you're doing is bolstering my price, which is absolutely fantastic because it allows me to leverage my position with the bank and get 100% funding, and then I can just go and buy more portfolios. So, from a point of view for that, it's in self-interest, it's actually really good that first-time buyers are actually doing this. Thank you very much, first-time buyers. I doff my cap.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of interesting stats there with the first-time buyers. Obviously, I'm aware of how the trends with rental values and things, but some interesting facts there with the first-time buyers, and quite a good topic.
Outlook for the property market.
Sorry.
Outlook for the property market, then.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting times ahead. I mean, the property market, there is some uncertainties, but comparatively, we can see obviously a soft landing still the most likely outcome. I don't think there's going to be anything drastic. With first-time buyers fueling the market, there are some interesting times that lay ahead, but we will see what they are as we progress.
It's become very, very stable after the calamity was the Liz Truss budget. It's become very, very stable, and it's like, oh my God, see when that happened, I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to buy these portfolios because interest rates are just going sky high. I was getting quoted 7% at one point in a fixed rate 5-year deal, and now I'm back to 5.69, and yet the base rates have actually gone up. So you see how the stability is essential in the money markets in order to allow the natural flow or the easy flow of finance. That's probably key here. This goes back to the credit crunch, doesn't it? And the fact that it's called the credit crunch because it was lack of availability of finance. It just drove that market because no one had money to buy. Therefore, property prices had to drop, where it became affordable for people to go, I might be able to afford it for cash, or I might be able to trade my property for the other one because the equity sounds fine now. So it's all recovered as a result of that. So happy days. Long may it continue and long may it rain. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, no, that was good, Jimmy. Thanks for that.
Okay, bye-bye for now.
See you later.